Mina Hernandez, and with me is Eileen Radin, a parent education expert who has worked in the field for over 20 years. Eileen.
Thanks, Mina. In this series, we'll look at some of the primary issues parents face in raising their children. Parenting is a skill, and like all skills, it is acquired and can be developed and improved. The children on our program are 5-year-olds, but as we know, many ideas that apply to young children are applicable to children of any age. The subject of today's program is health and safety. Good health includes good nutrition, regular medical and dental checkups, enough sleep, and keeping children safe. Mina?
Thanks, Eileen. Let's watch a scene in which a parent makes a decision that will affect their child's eating habits. Think about what you would do if you were in this situation.
I'm cooking, I'm hungry.
No cookies now. You have to wait until after dinner.
How was school, Mommy?
Fine, honey. But now Mommy's late for work. Oh, I'm starving.
I know, but Brown won't let me have a cookie.
Listen to your grandma.
I said no cookies. Don't you want to grow up to be big and strong?
Mine have cookie. Why does Mommy get to eat cookies all the time?
Patricia.
I'm not eating.
Fine. If you want to act like a baby, no food for you then. You can go to your room now. I guess Patricia and I will have to eat all the cookies by ourselves.
Carlos wanted a cookie before dinner and became upset when he couldn't have one. Take a moment and think about the following questions. How did Carlos's grandmother and mother respond to him? What did Carlos want? What would you have done in this situation if Carlos were your child? Let's start with the first question. How did Carlos's grandmother and mother respond to him?
I think Carlos was really hungry, and his mom and grandparent kind of ignored his feeling that he was hungry.
It's like they weren't really listening to him.
Good point. Listening is such a big part of parenting.
I also don't think it was right for Yolanda to take the cookie away from Carlos.
Wait a minute. I don't think she did anything wrong. Carlos was trying to get away with something that he knows isn't allowed. Parents can't just let their kids eat whatever they want, whenever they want.
That's true, but I think what they're saying is that maybe Yolanda could have handled the situation a little bit differently. Eileen, what do you think?
Well, instead of punishing Carlos for taking a cookie and leaving it at that, his grandmother could have explained to him why it would not be a good idea to eat it. When we want our children to practice good nutrition, we have to take the time to teach them why it's important. In this case, Yolanda, you could have told Carlos that dinner was almost ready and that a cookie would spoil his appetite.
Okay, what do I do if dinner isn't quite ready and Carlos and Patricia are really, really very hungry?
Good question, Eileen.
Well, if that's the case, then they could have been offered nutritious snacks, say, for instance, fresh fruit or vegetable.
You know, that sounds like a good idea, but what do you do when all Carlos wants is a cookie? Sometimes I'm so tired, it's easier just to give in to him.
We need to learn not to keep food in the house that we don't want our children to eat.
Good solution. Anybody else have?
I think it was wrong for Rosa to grab a cookie right before dinner, and that's right after Carlos was scolded.
Eileen, what do you think?
Parents have to realize that children watch what they do, and so we need to set an example for our children. When Rosa took the cookies, Carlos became very angry because he wanted one too, and he couldn't have one.
You know, I realize that nutrition is important for me too.
Well, it's easier to teach our children something that we've already learned for ourselves. We also need to remember that a poor diet can lead to low energy, poor school performance, and may have a negative effect on our moods.
Okay, what happens if we do all that and the child still complains?
Carlos can be very stubborn.
I liked the fact that Yolanda was tough with Carlos. Maybe next time he won't put up such a fuss.
I disagree. I think parents shouldn't use food as any form of punishment, in this case, Carlos.
Exactly. I mean, it's not fair that, Carlos's sister gets, all of his share of the cookies.
You missed the point. What's his grandmother supposed to do? Give him a big hug and a plate of cookies before dinner? People don't have time every day to give their kids classes on nutrition.
Eileen, was it fair for Yolanda to take away the cookies?
Well, using food as a reward or punishment is not a good idea. It certainly doesn't teach children good eating habits. And also it could lead to power struggles and eating disorders. And this is true for children who are forced to eat when they're not hungry.
It is important for my children to be healthy, not just now, but when they're older too.
That's great, Rosa. Now let's see if Eileen can give us a few more pointers on how you and Yolanda can help Carlos appreciate good eating habits.
Oh, yes. Include your child in the planning and preparing of meals, and you can teach good nutritional practices at the same time.
Let's review what we've learned.
Which of the following choices would be appropriate for Rosa and Yolanda? Think about why these choices would help Carlos learn proper nutrition and positive behavior. A. Yolanda could acknowledge Carlos's feeling of hunger and allow him to have a healthy snack. B. Yolanda could tell him that cookies are bad for him and leave it at that. C. Rosa could pack a cookie in her purse, explaining that it is for after dinner. D. Yolanda could acknowledge Carlos's disappointment over the cookie, then offer him a chance to help prepare the dinner so that it will be ready sooner. A, C, and D are appropriate choices. You may have additional good ideas as well. Letter B is not the best choice. Rosa ate cookies after Carlos was told not to. Good eating habits should be accompanied by a positive role model. Let's summarize some of the key ideas from this section. We want to make choices that will help children understand proper nutrition. Number 1, explain proper nutritional guidelines to children. Children are more likely to follow rules on their own if they understand them. Number 2, avoid practicing double standards. Children imitate what they see. Number 3, children do get hungry. Keep a variety of healthy snacks around. Number 4, avoid power struggles over food and do not use it as a disciplinary tool. Forcing children to eat may cause eating disorders. Number 5, involve children in meal planning and preparation as a way to teach nutrition and responsibility.
In this show, you have the chance to go back in time and do the scene over. Would you like to try some of the skills you've just learned?
Definitely.
By all means.
Let's watch Rosa and Yolanda and see what they do differently.
I'm cooking and hungry.
Carlos, you know the rules. No sweets before dinner. It spoils your appetite. But if you're really hungry, you can have a slice of fruit.
Never mind, I'll wait. How was school, Mommy?
Fine, honey. But now Mommy's late for work. Oh, I'm starving.
I'm hungry too, but Grandma won't let me have a cookie.
I should listen to your grandma too. I'll save mine for after dinner.
Can we have a cookie instead of dinner? Cookies taste better. I don't want dinner.
No cookies now. We'll have cookies later for dessert.
Why does dinner take so long to cook?
You two come here. If I had help, it would be quicker. Now you can help me set the table. And you, how would you like to mash the potatoes? Here. Show you. That. And tomorrow, we can go to the grocery store and you can help me shop. Would you like that? Okay.
Yolanda, Rosa, how do you feel now?
I am surprised. It didn't take any longer to explain things to Carlos than to ignore him and wait out his tantrums.
Even though I was only there for a minute, I felt I was able to help my mother by setting a good example for the kids. It's also nice to see them helping her. She works so hard.
Most of all, I think Carlos learned something, and he seemed much better for it.
Now we're going to see another scene. What would you do if you were in the same situation?
Please.
I'm not going to tell you again, young man. You are not going over to Carlos's house to play.
His grandma will be there watching us. She never let me go anywhere.
Look, David, I have an important deadline to finish today. I don't have time to argue with you. I want you here in this house where I can keep my eyes on you at all times. Do you understand? Now go play with your sister. Go. Listen to me. Listen, did you tell that man your name? How many times have we told you not to talk to strangers?
You wanted me to give you this.
I don't care. This doesn't matter, okay? Do you remember that little boy we saw on the news? We don't want that happening to you or Samantha. Do you hear me?
He was a nice man.
You're not listening. Go to your room.
Larry caught David talking to a stranger and scolded his son. Take a minute and think about the following questions. How did Larry respond to David talking to a stranger? What would you have done if you were David's parent? Let's start with the first question. How did Larry respond to David talking to a stranger?
I think he did the right thing. David shouldn't have been talking to a stranger.
No way, man. I mean, Larry scared the living daylights out of his kid. Come on, it's one thing to, like, educate the child about safety. It's another thing to, like, traumatize your kid for the rest of his life.
Larry, what do you say?
Well, that's the only way David seems to listen, okay? Yeah, I mean, we've explained the rules to him before, and he's been very obedient. But every time I talk to him about never talking to strangers, well, he goes right ahead and he talks to strangers.
But that's almost impossible. I mean, how do you tell a kid to absolutely not talk to strangers? I mean, everybody's a stranger at some point. Your friends, teachers, I mean, all of us here. It's...
Good point, good point. Yeah. Eileen?
Well, it is impossible for a child to go through his entire childhood without speaking to a stranger, so therefore we need to teach our children to be cautious.
How can we teach our children to distinguish who is safe and who is not?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to do. Anybody have ideas?
Well, it's almost common now, you know, that you hear news stories about kids being abducted and killed.
Oh, I understand that Larry was scared something would happen to his child. Keeping children safe is one of the most stressful and frustrating responsibilities parents have. But we don't want to teach fear. We want to teach facts and strategies.
What are specific strategies that Larry could have used? Anybody have any ideas?
Yeah, well, I taught my daughter that if she's offered anything or if she's asked to get into a stranger's car, to scream really loud and to tell an adult. And also if anybody a friend, a relative, I don't care who it is, touches her in any unnatural way, to tell me.
Good idea.
Yeah, I also think that children should be taught by their parents to ask them permission if they want to be with other people, whether they know them or not.
Yes. Those are excellent suggestions. Children need to be informed about how to handle these situations, and educating them is a very good preventative measure.
At least when my kids are at home, I have control over what they're going to do.
But even in your own home nowadays, it doesn't seem like your kid's safe.
Okay.
You know, you always can't be afraid.
Oh, how we communicate our fears is very important. Children should be told that most grown-ups like children and are nice to them. However, there are some that are not nice, and because of that, children have to be cautious and not speak to strangers. But overprotecting and teaching a child to be afraid can lead to a prolonged period of dependency.
Well, Eileen, I don't want my child to grow up afraid.
No, that's right. You don't want your child to be
But how can he learn to be independent if he can't even go over to a friend's house to play?
Well, the grandmother was going to be there, and you can't possibly be with them all the time.
Well, parents need to make sure that their fears are not preventing their children from making friends.
Okay, anybody else?
You could have taken him over to his friend's house and made sure that he was safe.
Maybe Larry didn't have time to go over to meet the grandmother. I mean, he's a busy guy.
Larry?
Well, I am a busy guy, that's right. I've got to put the bacon on the table, but you're right. I should have gone over and made the time to meet Carlos's grandmother and parents. I should have.
It's so hard to decide when a child is safe. How do you, find out when is the right time to let him out of your sight?
Yeah, it is very hard.
Can we judge by age or what?
Well, as children grow, they generally require less hands-on protection. Parents can gradually let go as a child grows older, can demonstrate that he understands the safety precautions he's been taught. However, young children should never go to the bathroom alone in a public place or be left alone in a mall. And they should be accompanied to and from school by an adult, or at least go in a group.
Are there other more specific things that we can do to help keep our children safe?
I've heard that children shouldn't wear clothes with names on them, and also shouldn't give out personal information over the telephone.
Yeah.
Oh yes, children tend to trust people who call them by name, so a stranger who sees your child's name on the shirt or jacket or hat can fool the child into thinking he knows him.
Gosh, I've given my son shirts and jackets with his name on it, David, so.
Well, I think we're realizing that our children aren't the only ones with things to learn. Yeah.
Another good strategy is to role play with your child what you have learned so that he'll know how to handle himself in dangerous situations.
Well, let's review what we've learned.
Which of the following choices would be appropriate for Larry? Think about how these choices would help David learn safety and independence. A. Larry could make sure that David does not wear clothing displaying his name. B. Larry could have role-played situations with David so that David would know the appropriate responses when confronted by a stranger. C. Larry could tell David that the stranger is a bad man who would have kidnapped him. D. Larry could take the time to meet David's playmates' parents and assess the safety of their play environment. A, B, and D are good choices for Larry and David. You may have additional good ideas as well. Letter C is not the best choice because Larry would be scaring David but not teaching him how to take care of himself. Let's summarize some of the key ideas from this section. Number 1, be matter-of-fact and calm in discussing safety with children. Warn them to be cautious with strangers. Number 2, do not allow children to wear clothing displaying their names. A young child may trust anyone who uses his or her name. Number 3, encourage independence in your child, but know who he is with and where. Number 4, train children to be competent and to cope with unsafe or dangerous situations by role-playing.
Larry, would you like to go back and relive the scene with David?
Very much.
Okay, let's go back and see what Larry has learned.
Please.
I'm sorry, David, but you can't go over to Carlos's house to play today.
Well, I'll be there watching. She never let me go anywhere.
Look, I've got a lot of work to finish, okay? I have to finish it today. I don't have time to argue with you. But I'll tell you what, I'll go over tomorrow and I'll meet Carlos's grandmother, okay? And I'll find out what's going on over there. Maybe you can go tomorrow. I just want to make sure the house is all right, okay? Hey, you. Remember that talk we had about you not talking to strangers?
Yeah, but a good man. He knew my name and he wanted me to give you this.
Look, just because he knows your name, David, that doesn't mean he knows who you are. I mean, you've got your name on your shirt. He could have looked at our mailbox, right, and seen our letters. Or he could have heard one of your friends calling you your name, right? So you gotta be really careful.
Is he a bad man?
Well, he may not be a bad man, because strangers are usually nice to kids, but you gotta be careful because sometimes they could trick you and hurt you. Look, what we'll do tomorrow, you and me will get together and we'll act out some scenes, and you'll know what to do next time, even if I'm not here, okay?
Okay.
And we'll figure out a code word. So friends of ours and adults, they'll know the code word and you'll know who to talk to.
Can Carlos come too?
Okay. Come on. Hey!
Well, Larry, how did that feel?
It felt better, and I think we'll be more at ease when we encounter these situations in the future.
Terrific. Now, let's put together the many ideas we've learned today.
Number 1, explain proper nutrition. Number 2, set a good example. Number 3, provide healthful snacks. Number 4, do not use food as punishment or reward. Number 5, involve children in meal planning and preparation. Number 6, avoid clothing displaying names. Number 7, foster independence but stay involved. Number 8, role-play safety procedures. Number 9, don't teach fear, teach facts and strategies. These 9 points can help improve the health and safety of your children. An excellent way to implement what you have learned is to keep a daily journal. Keep a list of the food your children eat and write down how you encourage good eating habits. Describe other measures you take to ensure good health, such as medical and dental checkups, shots, and good sleeping habits. Also, write down the safety instructions you teach your children and what they do when confronted with strangers.
Thanks, Eileen. We hope that watching this program will help you with your own children. We look forward to working with you again in our next episode of The Now and Future Parent. Bye-bye.